Hello and welcome to the Raising More Funds training. The training is designed to help you and your nonprofit organization to raise the funds that it needs so that you can continue to do the good that you're already doing. I'm excited to have you in this training today, and I want to share with you exactly who this training is for. This training is especially designed for individuals and nonprofit organizations that are seeking to do a more effective job of raising their funds and being more efficient in doing it in a manner that allows them to raise the maximum amount of funds in the shortest time frame. So as we help you to raise the maximum amount of funds, that means that you've got to become efficient and you've got to do things differently than you may be doing them right now. And I want to share with you some insight to help you do that precise thing. Now, I want to encourage you to do something really, really important before I dive into the wealth of this information I'm going to be sharing with you. I want to invite you right now to just pause everything, and I want you to really focus. By focus, I'm really asking you now to dial in. You may need to go and let everybody know, hey, I can't be disturbed over these next 30 to 40 some odd minutes or so because I'm in a training. Or you may need to turn your cell phone off, or you may really need to stop right now multitasking and really dial into what I'm saying. Because if you take note of what I'm saying, it really has the power to help your organization to get out of the storm that I'm about to talk about that you may currently find yourself in. I want to invite you to really hear what I have to say, because if you will dial in, some of the insight may open up some new doors for you that you may be overlooking, or that you may have gotten so busy with all the good that you're doing that you've forgotten and need to be reminded of. So with that said, I'm Rodney Walker. I am the president of Grant Center USA, and I'm most known for the work that I do in helping organizations to raise grant funding. Over $357 million raised by my clients that I've come alongside to empower to be able to raise these funds. And I've done it at a very high level with organizations that many of you, if I made mention of them, you'll be familiar with. Organizations like United Way, Habitat for Humanity, many of the Boys and Girls Club, many YWCAs. The Magic Johnson Foundation sent their people to me to learn about getting grant funding. George W. Bush Foundation, as well as Tavis Smiley Foundation, and countless city governmental organizations, police departments. The list goes on, colleges and universities as well. And I'm most known for that work. But what a lot of people don't realize is that what's made me super successful in being able to raise a lot of funds in these areas is that I've taken the principles that I teach in helping people to learn about grants, and those principles are really built upon the best practices that are also found in fundraising. So fundraising with grants are really the same in that they are married. They are in the same family. And so the principles that I'm going to be sharing with you today in terms of raising more funds are built really upon the best practices. And if your organization can take some of the best practices of what I'm going to share with you today and begin to apply it, things can be different. You see, you don't have to be in the struggle that you're in right now, and you don't have to remain in the struggle. Yes, right now you may be actually in a storm as we have here, but I'm going to show you how to rise above it if you'll just dial in and listen to what I have to say to you. Now, why is this so very important? Many people remember the management guru, Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker said something that was very powerful to me. And what he said was that he says that money is actually like the oxygen for an organization. No money, no oxygen. And every single nonprofit that I know needs its oxygen. It needs money. And so today's training is really designed to help you to look at what you need to do to get more oxygen, to get more money so that you can do more good. And when I talk to a lot of nonprofit organizations right now, many of them find themselves faced with a serious storm. They're saying, hey, how do we raise more funds, Rodney? We need to raise these funds And we need it because if we don't, we're going to have to lay off some people. If we don't, we're going to have to cut some programs. And if we don't, we're not going to be able to provide the type of service that we want to provide. And that poses a real problem, a real challenge. So let me talk to you first about this storm. And then let me share with you how to get out of your storm, how to rise above the storm, to be able to be in a position where you can breathe in and you can breathe out, where you don't find yourself under such high pressure. Now, I want to show you this. This is my little balloon here. Watch this. Now, this is where a lot of you are at right now. But if things keep going the way they're going, and we don't release some of the pressure, things continue to get worse and worse and worse, and things will eventually, wow, that's what happens. Things will eventually pop. And I don't want that to happen for your organization. So let's talk about this storm. Now, the problem is this. The problem is that many nonprofit organizations are not strategic. Okay? This poses a big challenge. They're not strategic in general, but even more so, they're not strategic in one of the most important areas of the organization that it has to be strategic in, and that is they're not strategic in raising funds. By strategic, I'm thinking more like chess. You know how when you play chess, you want to make strategic moves. You want to be thinking 4 and 5 moves down the road. And many nonprofits don't even know how they're planning on raising additional funds in an effective manner for the future. Many that I found are only doing their fundraising efforts in the old antiquated way, and they have not even taken advantage of some of the new systems that allow you to do fundraising in a more effective way. Things are not done in step with technology. So when you're not using technology, when you're not thinking through what you need to do, when you're not automatizing certain things that can be automatized, you're working from the old model. You see, there's an old way to raise funds, and there's the new way. The old way simply relies on doing things that you've always done and things that are important, but we just want to take those old methods that we know that are proven that work and integrate them into the new way that can make things more effective and efficient. So I want to ask you, what's your current game plan for raising more funds? And then secondly, have you thought through a strategy, a system? You see, many organizations don't even have what I call a fund development plan, meaning that they know every month, this is exactly what we're going to be doing to raise funds. And then you go to February. This month, this is exactly what we're going to be doing to raise funds. And then the next month, March, this is exactly what we're going to be doing. They haven't thought through that. They haven't strategized that. And this leads to a big problem. And this problem really starts at the top. Okay? It starts at the top. So if you're at the head of your organization and you haven't become strategic, I want to encourage you today to become more strategic. And if you are the head person, the executive director, or whatever your title is, CEO, president, it starts with you. It starts with you and your board becoming strategic to raise more funds. The other thing that I like to say about this that's really important, you're not strategic. So with all of these things, all of these that I have here over in the storm, it's connected to being what I call strategically malnutrition. And all of these are malnutrition. If your team doesn't have the strategy, or you don't even have a team, then you're not being strategic. So you're strategically malnutrition, and then your team malnutrition. Now, these two are somewhat connected, because if you don't have a team and your team is not downed into your strategy, then you're not going to be effective in raising the most funds that you can. And many people overlook the importance of realizing who the team consists of. Now, as a nonprofit organization, your team, as it relates to raising funds, it definitely starts with your board. Okay? Your board should be the principal place that fundraising starts. And then from there, that executive director along with the team. Now, who's the team? The staff. Every single person within your organization is a part of your team. The only problem is that if you're not operating strategically, you haven't taken the time to stress to everybody that they are a part of the fundraising efforts. So what happens is this. Let me just give you one example. You may be doing some fundraising over here and not realizing that your fundraising is being adversely impacted by what's taking place over here. So what happens, Susie, who works the front desk, answers the phone, and she has an attitude today, and she puts the person on hold for a long time and is kind of not being as polite as she possibly can, not realizing that she is a part of the fundraising team and doesn't truly realize the importance of how she treats this person who's on the phone, who possibly could be giving funds, that she's hindering them now from giving funds because of her attitude and the way that she's coming across over the phone. One example, okay? I can go on and on with this and share with you other examples, such as the way programs are ran and when somebody comes to your organization, their perception based upon the staff. But that is more than we have enough time to cover in this training. The bottom line is you want to get a team, and your team should be dialed in to your strategy. Okay? So the reason there's a storm is because there's malnutrition strategically, malnutrition with your team being involved in the process, and then malnutrition in terms of you taking advantage of the opportunities. Now, there are several opportunities that your organization had to raise funds. Right now, you may not realize there's not a shortage of opportunities, but the way your organization is currently operating, most likely it is overlooking tremendous opportunities. I mean, there are opportunities all around you that you don't realize that you're missing. You're missing opportunities right now. It's like you don't realize underneath you right now is a gold mine, but you're just sitting on it and don't realize that it's there. It's there right now. So this is opportunity malnutrition. And if you don't know what those opportunities are, or if you're overlooking opportunities, or if there's a board member that has a connection that you are not taking advantage of right now, it doesn't matter that the opportunity is there. The fact that you are overlooking it and haven't taken the time to really realize that it's there presents a huge problem. It presents the opportunity malnutrition. And we really got to change that. Now, let's talk about this other one. This other one is relationship malnutrition. By relationship malnutrition, anybody that's done any fundraising knows that there is a best principle. And one of the best principle is the best principle of realizing where money comes from and having that at the forefront of your mind. Now, what's that? At the forefront of your mind, you must realize that people give to what? To programs, to projects, to facilities? No. People give to people. At the end of the day, this is a people's game. This is about people. People that are passionate about what you're doing. But if they don't even know what you're doing, how can they become passionate about what you're doing if you haven't taken the time to share your story? If you haven't taken the time to show them firsthand what you're doing? Which brings us down to one of the biggest challenges that currently has you in the storm, and that is marketing. I would venture to say that the vast majority of the nonprofit organizations that I know don't do as effective of a job of marketing as they have the potential of being able to do. And I want to invite you today to change that, to turn that around, to really see that a part of your role in what you do to raise more funds is directly tied into this marketing thing. No marketing, no moolah. No relationships, no money. All of these keep you in the storm. There was a report that came out a few years ago that talked about the average nonprofit in the United States, and most of them had less than 3 months of reserves, of financial reserve, cash reserves, to be able to help them. Now, if a storm begins to erupt, does your nonprofit organization have enough resources to continue on to be able to weather the storm? If it doesn't, we want to get your nonprofit into a place where it is a safe place, where it has resources that it can use to continue to weather the storm so that it can eventually start to rise. But marketing presents one of the biggest challenges that many nonprofits have. And oftentimes, no one has really encouraged them to really say, great, let's fix this area. Let's dial in our marketing efforts and do a more effective job of it so that we can bring in more resources. This also means that, and oftentimes if they haven't nailed this down, it's because things have changed and you've remained the same. I want to say it again. What I just said was really, really important. It means that things have changed. If you're not doing effective marketing, most likely things have changed and you have remained the same. Now, if your organization is still doing the same old, you're going to get the same old, same results. If you haven't infused your organization with new marketing strategies to be able to build better relationships, then you're going to be selling in the same old shit. And I'm just hoping that the waters don't get too bad as you sell those ships, which means that if you're going to do things different, you've got to say, great, hey, how do we market more effectively? How now do we get out of a situation where we're not malnutrition markedly in our marketing? And also, what are those relationships that we got to identify that we can begin to nurture more so that we can bring in more resources? So here's the storm. Now, I want to talk about the storm for just a second before I go on and show you how to get out of the storm. If we're really honest, most likely that storm is keeping you up at night. That storm is a storm that makes it seem like someone is choking you. You see, and this is really, my heart really goes out to you as a leader, because what happens a lot of times is the pressure is put primarily on one person, when this is not a one-person thing. This is a team thing. So it varies. Sometimes in some organization, it's those who've hired you. It's the board of directors who's telling the executive director, hey, raise more funds. Okay. You better raise more funds, or if you don't, you're going to lose your job. Okay. That calls for more pressure. And what happens is, if that's the case, then you are in a situation where you're forcing things. And we don't want you forcing things. We want you to be able to step back, look at the big picture, and see what you got to do to rise that allows you to strategically improve each of these areas. Okay? That means that we've got to pull the board members in on the team to make sure that they're helping to strategize. Or if you're a board member and you right now watching this, you say, great, we got to raise more funds. Well, dear board member, we've got to strategize as a team and then work with the executive director as he or she maneuvers to carry out your game plan. But the strategy really starts at the top. No blaming, but looking and saying, okay, great. Hey, what do we need to do to fix this? Okay. So that we don't overlook those opportunities, so that we build the relationships, that we maximize every opportunity we have, and we do an effective job of getting that message out. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Now, let's take a look at what things can be. I want you to imagine for a second if your organization really got serious. I mean, you got serious and said, okay, great. We're going to turn things around. We want to get out of this storm. We don't like the ship that we're currently sailing in, and we're going to get out of the storm and do things differently. What are some of those things that we've got to do? I want to share with you the very first thing that I suggest that you do. And these are what I call 5 steps to getting out of your storm so that you can raise more funds. Okay. So here's the first thing that I want to say to you that you should really consider doing to get out of your storm. The first thing, my friend, is you have got to recognize. Now, what are you talking about, Rodney? Recognize. Recognize what? The first thing you got to do is recognize that you are in a storm and come to terms with it. You see, a part of the solution is really you identifying where you're at. If you're not raising as much as you like, that could possibly mean that you're in a storm as well. Or maybe you have resources, but you haven't done an effective job of going to the next level. We'll recognize this is where we're at right now. Recognize that you may be plateaued. Okay. If you maybe are not in a full blown storm like this, maybe recognize that, hey, we may be plateaued. What are the numbers? What are the numbers from last year to this year? All I'm saying is right now, the first step to being able to move forward is recognizing where you're at. Once you've recognized, hey, this is where we're at right now in terms of our fundraising efforts. This is what we've done good. This is what we've not done as good. You've got to take that next step. So a part of that recognizing involves you to assess. You've got to recognize, and then you have got to assess. You got to assess what's working. What's working? So in essence, we're saying this: what's working? What's not working? When was the last time you've done that? When was the last time you looked critically at your fundraising efforts and say, okay, great, hey, this is what's working, this is what's not working? Because most likely you're probably doing something right now that you probably shouldn't be doing anymore. There's some fundraising activities that are not really producing, but they're being done because this is what we've always done. Oh, we always have done this. We've had this. This is the 38th annual this. Well, do we need to continue to do the 39th? Maybe it's time to bury that on the 39th time, okay? Some things shouldn't be done because they're not producing the results we need. And there may be some things that you may need to reallocate your time to become more strategic in doing more of, because it will produce far greater results. This is about working smarter versus harder, okay? And when we begin to work smarter versus harder, and when we set up the systems that allow us to do that, then everything changes, okay? Are you hearing me? Things change when we start operating smarter versus just working harder. That's why you've got to do the assessment. If you don't do the assessment, we don't find out what the problem is, and things remain the same. You keep going on that treadmill. You know the little treadmill that you keep on going. Wondering, what am I going to do to get out of this? How am I going to fix this situation? How are things going to change? Oh, while the board's asking me for this is asking me for this. Oh, they're not doing this. Oh, and you feel this weight. The only way things change is by recognizing and then making an assessment. And after you make the assessment, you say, okay, great. Now, based upon the assessment, something's going to happen. Here's what happens. When you make the assessment and you do it thorough, and I mean taking some time, you might need to bring your team together. You may need to bring the board together to do some of this recognizing and assessing. But once we do that, here's what happens next. You make the assessments, and then you identify what you need to do. You identify it, and you don't deny it. You recognize it, and you identify it. Okay? So a part of what I'm saying here, the first half of us being able to get you to rise so that you can raise the funds, the first half of it really entails you looking inwardly as an organization, inwardly individually, inwardly as a team, and really say, okay, great, this is where we're at, and this is what we now see as a problem. And then we've got to also say, okay, great, where are those opportunities? And once we look at what those opportunities are, we then say, great, how do we go about being more strategic? It all comes back to being strategic, and then from there, really saying, great, let's execute on being strategic, and know that is not what this E is. It's not execution, but execution is very powerful. It's something that we've got to look at as well. But we strategize and we say, okay, great. Hey, now based upon identifying where we're at, we now can start looking at what are those opportunities that we've been overlooking. And we start saying, okay, great. Oh, we have this opportunity. And what we need to do is really dig deep. By looking at the opportunities, I mean really assessing. For instance, let me give you an example. Maybe you have 5 board members. When was the last time you planned and worked with your board members to look at all of their people within their network, people of influence, relationships within their network that could possibly serve the organization in its fundraising efforts better? What funding opportunities are there? What events might we do that we're not currently doing right now? Really identifying, hey, where has most of our funds come from over the last 5 years? And really say, okay, great, hey, what can we do right now to make those events yield even more? Okay? So I would venture to say that right now your organization just isn't operating at its optimal level. And what I want to encourage you to do is to have a shift today to say to yourself, we will no longer allow ourselves not to operate in an optimal level. So even if we take the existing things that we're doing right now in terms of fundraising, and we say, great, we're going to improve upon those and really assess within those what we can do with each of those to become more effective, then that's how things start changing. So we got to identify what those areas are. Okay. Now let's look at this final one, which is E. And I told you what's not execution, but execution is not a bad E. It's something worth looking at and also doing as well. This last E is an organization has to become empowered. You've got to empower yourself, and then you got to go back and start empowering your team. And once you start doing that, recognizing, assessing, identifying, being more strategic, strategizing, and then you start empowering your team, things can shift. Things can shift for the better really, really quickly. And that's what I want for you and your organization, my friend. Now, if your organization is at a place where you say, hey, Rodney, this makes a lot of sense, and we want to do more than just talk. We want to do some things. I want to invite you to take advantage of a free strategy call that I want to have with you. My team and I, we want to connect with you and help you to get to that next level. Now, who is this call for? This call is not for individuals that just want to talk on the phone. This is for those organizations and individuals who are really serious about raising funds for your agency. And if you're serious about getting started, I'm going to come alongside of you, and my team and I are going to have that call with you, and we're going to ask you some of those questions to see where you're at, to help you to become more strategic in your efforts so that you can go and get those funds. So feel free to go to call.raisingmorefunds.com, or just wait another 30 seconds or so, and there's going to be a link that's going to take you straight to where you can schedule a time to talk. Now, once you schedule that time to talk, there's going to be a short application. I want you to fill that application out so that we can be ready for your call. We can kind of know some of the things that we need to prepare for as we are kind of looking at how we can help you to get to where you want to go. And then I'm going to share with you some of those same systems that I've been able to share with countless organizations that have helped them to raise more funds, doing more of what we're talking about here. Okay? So with that said, my friend, thank you again for your time. Sign up, and I'll see you real soon. All the best.